we decided to do this session because, thank you, Megan, for recording the session. The session is now being recorded. So welcome again for those of us, because I forgot to hit that button today too. So we're going to be talking about event branding, and the question that we get asked a lot about event branding and events in general is how close or how far can my event brand be from our primary brand? A lot of times what I get asked is, geez, does it always have to be the same? Does it always have to look the same? What can I do to make my event stand out and be different and distinctive while still making it an important, valuable part of our brand? So that's kind of a big question that we get asked all the time. And then there's lots of specific questions we get asked about what that means from people. And so today, we have a bunch of examples from projects that we've done over time. And I'm going to tell you in advance, some of them are a little bit older, and we grab them not so much to like showcase the design because they are a little bit older, but because they showcase the concept that we're trying to communicate in them. So don't be too judgy if the design seems old. So that's really an important thing to think about. And so we wanted to be able to get you good examples that really showcase a concept or a point, something for you to consider so that you can evaluate the decision for yourselves. But like at a high level, to answer that question, how tight or how far can it be? How far can you wander off and be different? I mean, of course, the answer is always it depends, but I'm not going to give you a general, like, well, it just always depends. Like, here's three big things that I think you can think about when we go with the it depends how far you can go. So the first one is, how well is your organizational brand known? Like, how well is your organization, your colors, how recognizable are you to the community that you want to come to your event, that you're inviting to the event? If your organization, if your brand isn't well known, and then you create a new brand or a different brand, or your event brand is really far off, you're going to have more trouble associating those things together a lot of ways. So that's something to think about. And we're going to dig into that and talk into that concept more. So that's one. So two, how much are your attendees anticipating the event? Which, of course, we all want to think that like everyone's out there dying and they can't wait for this event to come. But some events are more like that than other events, depending on whether it's a conference or a gala or a race or, whatever kind of an event that you're having. Is this some big seminal event that your organization is known for and that your community is like, the minute your event is over, they're Googling for what's the date for next year? Is it, or is it something that you're trying to find people to come to every year? If you've got a tight group of people that are just waiting, they can't wait to come back again next year, you often have a little bit more play with the look and feel because they're already looking for your event. They're going to come. We'll show you an example of that as well. And then the third thing to kind of consider with how different can it be is, what's your brand priority? Is the event brand a brand of its own? Or does it need to become a brand of its own? Have any of you ever, I mean, I'm not a runner, but I was married to one. And so there was always a lot of like those races, fundraising races that are around that are often related to, or technically they're a fundraiser for an event. Like Megan's had an experience of that. Why don't you talk about one that you experienced, but not that you ran in it, but that you know about?
I did actually run in it. Yeah, I know, shocking. But it's called the Hot Chocolate Run. They do it nationally. I'm sure depending on where you are, you've probably heard of it. You may have run in it before. And they raise money for some kind of nonprofit. I'm not exactly sure what the nonprofit was. But people sign up for this event because it's the Hot Chocolate Run and you get hot chocolate at the end and things like that. And so it's interesting because the brand is raising money, or this event is raising money for this specific nonprofit. And yet no one really pays attention or really knows or is running this race to raise money for this nonprofit. And so when you're thinking about whether or not you're branding an event, how you're branding an event, you have to think about, well, is the cause the most important part, or is getting people to show up the most important part?
Right. And I think that's a really, really good point. And the answer is it could be either. You might, as an organization, do really well by focusing on, hey, we're doing this thing and we want a bunch of people to come. We want the money. We want the We want the participation. We want the event to be known as like this great event that people want to participate in. There can be value in that. On the other hand, you're doing all of this work to grow and you're raising money, but you're not necessarily creating donors. You know, if somebody's coming because they're interested in running a race and they're on the race circuit, for example, they're coming to this thing to do this thing that they want to do. But if they don't really know you or find out about you or get involved with you or really connect to the fact that I'm doing this for you, they're not ever going to be anything other than a person that came to your event, gave you money that time, that year, and maybe they'll do a different race next year, for example. And when we were looking at examples, one of the other ones that I saw, it was great. It was called the Thin Mint Sprint. So if a race is called the Thin Mint Sprint, even without having the name of the organization that the money is for in there, can you guys tell me, like, whose event is that? Anybody want to chat and tell me who who runs can you guess? Come on, you've got to be able to guess who that is. So, all right, we're going to be, there we go. Exactly. The Girl Scouts. Right. So that's the thing to think about is even getting an event brand attached to your organization brand could come down to even what you name it. So not even the visuals, not even the graphics, not even the colors, not even all this other stuff, but like the difference between what is that one called, Megan? The
hot chocolate run.
Hot chocolate run, you know, and it's funny, like Megan and I live in Pennsylvania. And so Hershey's chocolate is based in Pennsylvania. So when she told me about the hot chocolate run, I instantly thought, oh, that's probably something that Hershey's runs because like that's the chocolate people. But it's not, it's not. And so, but the Thin Mint Sprint, first of all, how clever is that? But it ties the name. So like, there's no way you wouldn't even need the logo of the Girl Scouts on there to know but that speaks to how well is your brand known, you know, so they have that. How well is your brand known? And they wanted their brand to be tied into that. And so those are just a couple of kind of initial things to think about. So I'm going to now share my screen and see if I can get back to what I wanted to get back to. There we go. All right. Am I sharing the right screen again, Megan?
Yes.
Okay. So fantastic. So we're going to start off by talking. We're basically going to go wide and then get narrower and narrower and narrower as we go. So we're going to start off with some people that really change up and do a lot of different things with their brand. So Megan, why don't you talk a little bit about this? This is a trade show. Like it's an every other year giant international trade show for an association.
Yes. So this is the International Sleep Products Association, and they have their ISPA Expo every other year. And it is the biggest event. It's the biggest thing that they do as an organization. And it is an international event. So they only host the event in the US, but people come from all over the world to this event each year because it is a huge event in this very small industry. And so one of the things that they have to focus on every other year when this event is coming up, they have to focus on how are we going to get people to be excited to come to this conference from all over the world. And a lot of the time people are coming anyway because it's kind of an industry event, but they still want people to come and get excited each year about coming to this event. And so one of the things that they do is they really change up the look of this event. We, at the very beginning, so this was one of the first years that we worked with them. And back then, they even changed up the color of the logo of the event. So if you see up at the top on the right, that logo is the expo, the event logo. And we would change up the colors each year. It would stay the same. The logo would stay the same. We would just change up the colors. But the look of the event is completely different. It's a new color palette as well. And that's one of the questions that we often get asked is, do the colors have to be the same each year? And again, it depends, is kind of going to be the theme of this talk. And one of the reasons why they are able to get away with changing up the colors is this event is anticipated each year or every other year. People know, the people that are coming to this event know about it. They look for it each year. And so if they're changing up the look, if they're changing up the colors, it's really okay. And one of the things that they really do well is they think about the location that this event's going to be in each year. And when they're thinking about the location, they then choose colors that kind of associate with that location. The very first year we worked with them, the event was in Orlando, and the colors we used were a light blue and a lime green, which very much it felt so Orlando. There were palm trees on everything. It was very, very Orlando. And so each year they try to think about, okay, so this is the location we're working with. How do we grab people's attention? And Beth, if you click, we can see the rest of the materials. I thought I had turned these animations off.
That's okay. They're fine. I might have grabbed the old one. That's fine. Don't worry about
Okay.
it. Yeah, and I think that's really interesting, Megan, is that I feel like some years we made the color palette more about the location than other years. And I think some of that's like when your conference is in Orlando, you're probably picking a place where you're expecting families to come. You're expecting it to be kind of a little bit of a, let's come and maybe have vacation. So people are really, let's go and do this. But in other years, like I think this one was in Charlotte. So it's not like Charlotte's like a destination place for vacations. And so this year we focused on other aspects for the design.
Yeah, so we
One of the
tried.
things that we did was we actually, in this one, we I think you made this really cool circular design, which was really interesting. And when you're doing a large event, it can be really helpful to use a design that has a look, that has like a graphical image or some graphical thing that you can hook into as you're creating your other pieces. You know, for example, for a trade show, there's a million pieces that they had to create. You can see some of them over here, from signage to floor mats to lanyards to labels. I mean, there's a million pieces, and being able to have a little bit of a graphic, a distinctive color palette, distinctive typography, and a graphic that you can use in lots of different ways throughout the piece allows the pieces that you're creating to look varied, but also still tie all together.
Yes.
So then, Megan, do you want to talk? So then this is the next year. So just as an example, like this is the only one we're going to show you two of. And we had this animation, so we threw it on here. We're not going to stay on here too long because it's probably going to make you guys dizzy soon.
Yeah, so I will talk quick. So this year they wanted a very clean, elegant look. They actually told me, I want this to feel like Apple designed it. And then we kind of pushed it from there. But like this jumbo postcard that's on the side with the drums and everything, that was not very Apple, but that was something that we developed later on as a like last minute get people excited because the event was in New Orleans. And so we were trying to, the idea behind the design for this expo was not really related to where the location was, but as like a last minute little reminding people that it's coming, getting people excited about the event. They sent out this postcard that was very themed around the location and trying to get people to just get excited. And so, but this year they wanted a very clean, they wanted to use black, but they also wanted some really bright, fun highlight colors. And so that's why we brought in this bright blue and this bright yellow. And as you can see, the colors, the feeling between the two conferences that we just showed you, it's the exact same event. We just changed up the colors entirely, and it feels like a completely different event, which is something they're looking for. They want people to feel like they're coming to something new and fresh and exciting. But one of the big changes that we made this year was that they decided they wanted to change the logo so that it wasn't changing up so much. So they had redesigned their organizational logo, and they decided for the expo they wanted something very simple, a very simple type lockup that stayed either black or white, no color. They did not want it to have a lot of variation because they were trying to create a little bit more consistency with the expo from year to year. So then following up this event, then they continued using a more simple, less varied logo for the event itself.
Exactly.
But they continue to change the theme.
And I think that's going to be a theme that you'll see kind of going through this conversation today is in anything like this one, as you can see, almost just about everything changes on this year over year. The name, we call that like the words that says the future is here. We call that the conference theme. that's the like the name of the conference for that given year, even though the overall thing is called the ISPA Expo. Lots of conferences, lots of programs do that where like the specific, even galas do that sometimes, where there's like a name for that year's style of a gala. And over time, they decided that they needed something to be a little bit more anchored. And that's why they ended up switching and simplifying the logo. I like what Sarah's saying here, that Sarah, thanks for sharing that your small association has brand guidelines for, they have 3 meetings and they have colors, imagery, and fonts. And that helps you be consistent for each of them. And that's a really great point. Sometimes you have more than one event and each event has its own sort of theme and style. So you have to start getting organized. So this one, we don't need to do that because it's literally totally different every year. But as we go deeper and get more detailed, you'll start to see things that are more like that. And then I'm going to go on from here because, whoo, that's a lot to look at.
Yeah.
So Blast is a really fun and totally like, that was like an association, like a small association that runs a really big global event. This is the complete opposite.
Yes, so Blast is there's a small private school in upstate New York that has this gala every single year. It is a K through 12 school. And so because of that, families are at this school for many, many years. They expect this gala every single year. It's at the same time of year every year. And so because of that, they have the ability to really play with the theme and the logo and the look of the event. But the one thing that they do that ISPA sort of does, but not really, is they keep the name of the event the same each year. So it is always called Blast. They just mix up how they're using that Blast theme and what the theme is of the event. And so in this top example, the theme was sharing our story, and they wanted a garden party theme, but also storybook theme. Like they kind of had a dual theme situation going on. And so we pulled in this like old typography that felt like an old storybook. And so one of the cool things that we did that year was, instead of giving out traditional grab bags, they took this theme and ran with it. And they created these boxes that open up. And instead of the grab bag, all of the little tchotchkes that they would give out normally in a bag were inside of what looked like a storybook. And so they have the ability to really change up the look and feel and direction of their gala each year, because people know it's coming. The audience is a small audience. It's people that are looking forward to this event. And even if they don't know it's coming, even if they have a kindergartner, they're getting messaged about it constantly. They're looking for this information because it's coming from their children's school. And so they have the flexibility that sometimes other organizations don't have. But it's kind of another fun way to look at how you can brand an event.
Yeah, I'm curious, like for everybody that's here today, does anybody go to this extreme? Like this is probably the most extreme one that we're going to show you today. And like Megan worked on that top one, but some of these other ones are just events that they've done on their own since we were involved with them. But I'm curious, does anybody else, keep the name of an event the same and change every single thing else about it? And if so, like, I'm curious, like, how does that work for you? What can you share with the group about the decisions that you've made about how much you change or how little you change? And even Sarah, how do you've got to keep your 3 different events. Does within each of those brands, how much do you change? Oh, Kimberly, that's great. You have an event that does something similar. We keep the font, but not much else. So that's a great idea. We're going to show you an event that kind of looks like that as well. And that's interesting. And so Kimberly, people are able to sustain, and do you have an audience that kind of shows up and is looking for it every year? I mean, there could be other reasons why this works. It's probably also just fun. Like we're going to have a big party in the garden, a party outside for the school every year. I think people kind of want to go to something that's different. And I think they look forward to like, what's the theme going to be this year? Oh, Jordan, that's great too, that you have a challenge because your gala is themed every year. We wish it had another name other than gala. And so that's a great point, Jordan. Just like how ISPA was using like that logo that changed colors and changed every year. And then at some point they said, you know what, this isn't working for us anymore. we need to tighten things up. We need to do something that's going to help us. I would also encourage you all to say, if something isn't working, you can change it. You can make minor adjustments. You can try something for a year. It's probably not going to like destroy your attendance. I often find like when people are doing like an annual appeal or something, like you're afraid to try or test something because like, what if it doesn't work? That's your one shot. And galas can feel that way too. Like, what if we change something and then no one comes? Like, that's probably not going to happen. And you can always market your way around that. But that may be something to consider. Like if you want to change something a lot, in this case, the name Blast is the anchor, and at least it's distinctive. And they have other events that have other names. And so everyone knows, like, this isn't just the annual gala, it's we're coming to Blast. I love that. So that's fantastic. Oh, I love all your great, oh, a Cuban pig roast. What a fun thing. So we also made a small change from moving it to Cuban pig roast to annual pig roast. Okay. Well, I can understand that there's lots of probably reasons why you would want to make that kind of a change. And Dear is saying that they keep the brand logo, unit, and font the same, but have created different themes for each year for a special event with its own graphic. That's fantastic. That's also a really good point, is that, and we're going to show you that. Yeah, that's actually next. So I'm going to jump to that right now. So this is not one that we did. This is a conference that I often go to. I'm a woman-owned business, and this is like it's not even real. I guess it's an association, but it's an organization that helps women-owned businesses get certified and grow their businesses and stuff. They're a great organization. And so I often will go to their conferences, but they're national. They're pretty big. They're national. These are huge, huge events. And so some of the things that they're doing kind of combine some of the different things that we talked about. Because another question that people ask us a lot is, well, even if they're not necessarily the limited color palette of your primary brand, if you keep the colors of your brand the same every year, how, like, is it going to be distinctive? Can I still make it unique? So ISPA changed the colors every year. Blast change everything except the name every year. So this one tightens up a little bit. And so every year it's called the National Conference. So like that's the kind of high level name is National Conference, which is not unlike the annual gala, something like that. But they still have a theme name. So one year it was Momentum. So that was like 2 years ago, it was Momentum. And then this year it was Amplify. So the name changes, but can you see the things that are same? If you notice the word Amplify and the word Momentum, same font. So they're not even changing, they're not changing the font. They're still like using this kind of rainbow color palette and making each letter one thing. So that's the same, but yet they still have slightly different looks. So you could say that the logo changed a little bit, because if you look at Momentum, they did this kind of fun thing with the letters where they're swooping up and kind of making the letters go up a little bit, but it's kind of like a little graphic embellishment that they're using in their logo. So they're not creating a totally different graphic logo. They're not going as far as Blast, where one year it looked like, you know, Grimm's fairy tale storybook, and the next year it looked like a street art graffiti. I mean, vastly, vastly different. Can you guys see the kind of through line of these conferences? And even if you were just sort of quickly seeing it on social media, you'd probably catch this very distinctive color palette, and then the consistency of the font, and then the way they're using the colors, but they are adding in graphic, like we call this a graphic style, you know? So in 2 years ago, they had this kind of black and white ribbon. And one of the things that I like about that is they've got this crazy colorful logo. So they came up with something that like to let your eye just relax and sit. And they have this kind of black and white ribbon that's going through things. And then in this year's, it looks totally different, but can you guys see the kind of visual relationship between the black and white ribbon of last year and the yellow linear art from this year? And then they added a little bit to it. They have the little dots that you can see on the left in their conference graphic. And then if you look at the sign that they created for on-site in the end, there's like a different, but they're all graphics made out of lines, which like you might not even catch if you're just a casual observer. But subtly through their brand, they're doing things that kind of are in this bandwidth as opposed to this bandwidth to keep things fresh and different and changing while still making it feel branded and consistent. And I have to say, like, this is not our brand. We didn't create this. So I don't know what the brand guide is behind this, but I would suspect that there's somebody thinking, how could we make new shapes out of linear things so that one year connects to the next, connects to the next? How can we use our rainbow colors in a way that's distinctive and eye-catching, but also, has some quiet space so that people can read it and absorb the information? Does that make sense? Are you guys kind of seeing that through line and how they're actually, it looks all unique and different, but this is a much narrower brand, range. We often would say you can ride your tricycle between the fire hydrant and the driveway, as opposed to riding your tricycle all the way down the street and around the block and coming back. We've narrowed those cattle chutes, but still created some range so that this event looks different and unique every year. Megan, do you have anything you want to add?
Yes. So something that I think is kind of interesting that they're also doing here is they are using the same color palette. They have that rainbow color palette. But one of the things, if you have a very restrictive brand that you can do, is what they're doing with this Amplify design. So if you look, while they are using the colorful palette for the words Amplify, they are, and for this WeBank sign that they had up at the event, if you notice, the accents around that in the black image are only yellow and pink. And actually above the WeBank logo, it's only yellow, orange, and pink. And so that year they really leaned in, I think this was actually this year's conference, they really leaned in to the warm color, the warm colors that were in their palette. And they used those primarily as the accent colors of the event. So while yes, they have the full rainbow and they're still pulling it in to stay consistent with their brand guidelines, they're pushing it a little bit to give some variety. And so they're lucky because they have a pretty large color palette. And so being able to pull out 2 out of their 6 colors or whatever it is that they have is an option that they have. And that's a great option to give it a little bit of variety while still staying tight within your brand. And that's something to consider when you are thinking about some options. If you have a large color palette that has to be included each year, thinking about how you can emphasize different colors each year is also a really great option.
That's a really good point, Megan. And so for those of you, like, you might not have a large color palette for your event or something, but maybe in your organization, you have does anybody have a primary and a secondary color palette, that you've got other colors that maybe aren't in your logo, but that you have them there for like secondary uses? One of the things that you could consider is maybe taking one of those colors out, or a group of those colors, or all of them, depending on what they are, and thinking how you could maybe deploy that secondary color palette to create, a brand, like a brand or a color palette for your brand, without even necessarily going into completely different colors. Now, this color palette is, I don't know if you can see, but in the WeBank that's how that's pronounced, WeBank logo, inside that C is like, there's like a little graphic inside the C. And that little graphic inside the C uses all of these, maybe not, maybe it is, I think it's all these colors. And so one of the things that I like about this is that in their primary logo, it's very black, clean, simple black, but they have this really colorful piece that it's subtle. So like in their main logo, black is the primary and the bright colors are secondary. And then for their brand, for their event, they flipped it and made the colors primary and the black kind of secondary. But there's still, you can see that they're still balanced in like 2 halves of like, we're going to go this way and then we're going to go this way. And so that's an interesting way to look at something like that. And if you consider something doing like that, you might even have a color palette that you can already use within your brand colors now. But there's, the kind of thing that we often say in design, if you paint your walls blue and get a blue couch and get blue pillows, it's going to look pretty boring. So, but if you're going to pick like a crazy bright yellow for something, you might want to make that your pillow and not your wall color. So you might have a pillow somewhere in your brand, a nice little accent color, that if you flipped it around and made it the primary color, it could really be eye-catching on social and really just let people hone in on their brand. So Megan, talk a little bit about Do More. We don't have any pictures today of this project we do for Do More, which is an online giving day, but they have a really, really bright, bold color palette.
They have an extremely bright, bold color palette, and they also have an extremely tight brand. And so they're an event that they run it every single year, but they keep the look very tight each and every year. And so their color palette is like lots of really bright oranges, pinks, yellows, reds, And then they have like a dark blue that they pair with all of that. And one of the challenges with that is that every color is screaming at you, but at the same time, it's an online giving day. And so people are posting things on social. And so because this extremely bright color palette is in your face, when you're scrolling through social, you stop and you notice it. And so you also have to consider when you're considering your color palette for an event, where are you marketing this event? Where is this event taking place? How is this event being seen? Because if this event is something that's on social, primarily being marketed on social, or primarily actually taking place on social or online, you may want to consider a brighter, more obnoxious color palette that you may not normally consider using, because it'll stand out. We've had other organizations where it wasn't necessarily for an event, but for a program where they primarily used, say, a blue and they had a secondary yellow, but then on social, they used the yellow more primarily because it just stands out and grabs people's attention.
Right. Yeah, we had another, we were working with, we have a hospital system we work with, and their colors are purple and gray. And Megan had to design a breast cancer event for them. And they, in general, like they do different things, but they were really at a point where they were trying to really focus on using their color palette more. And we tried to design this, it was a fashion show event. So she designed this whole thing in purple and gray, and they were like, this doesn't, number one, this doesn't look fun. And number two, it doesn't look like breast cancer. So another thing to think about when it comes to your color palette, if your event happens to be tied to anything, whether it's something like a cause like breast cancer, like if you're not using pink, it doesn't read as breast cancer to people, which is so interesting. And so with that event, what we did, because it was an event that they were specifically trying to attract men to come to as well, we ended up having to redo the design using pink, but instead of using the light pale breast cancer pink, we ended up using more like a fuchsia. And that's all it was like fuchsia and black and white. And
Ooh,
so
it was fuchsia and white with black
well,
type.
there wasn't even any black in
There
it.
was
Wow.
no black other than the body copy.
Yeah. Well, but that counts. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, so that's so interesting. So Joseph's saying that they have a master brand palette of 4 colors and then a sub brand with 5 additional colors. And so Joseph, I'd be curious, like, have you found that helpful? Do you use those 5? How do you work those 9 colors as you're designing events? Like, what decisions are you guys making? So, okay, Megan, okay, another question we get asked a lot about is in general, like a very broad question is like, what makes a good event brand? Like when you're trying, like there's all different reasons, all different types of things. And so this is a project that we did for not just Yale, but like, so Yale is a university. And then even within Yale, there's already the sub brand of Yale's law school. And then underneath of that is the sub brand of the Yale Law School reunion. And so we were developing a brand specifically for the reunion activity so that people would see it in their mail, see it online, see it everywhere and get connected to it. And make the effort to both give and to show up. So Megan, like what are the choices that you made when based on the range that we were allowed to play in with this one?
Yeah, so obviously with a brand like Yale Law School, you have limitations because it is a very recognizable brand and they don't want to push it too far. So some of the things that we did when working with them was we had a lot of conversations about like where things could be pushed. And so one of the first things we thought about was color. And they were willing to pull in other colors. This is a separate event. This is not like admissions or anything. This is reunion. We're trying to get people excited to come back, do some different things. But as we were talking about things, we realized Yale's blue is such a distinctive color. It is almost anyone can think of this specific blue color that Yale uses. And so when we were talking about the brand design, we had to include that color. That had to be included on all of the materials because when people get that, especially their alumni gets things in the mail that are that color, they grab it and they want to pay attention to it. They're not going to throw it instantly in the trash can. They're like, oh, this is from my alma mater. Let me pay attention. And so we had to include the Yale blue. But we decided to pull in this fun lime green color to just give the event a little something special, give it a little bit of a different look so that on some of the other materials, it's used a little bit more broadly than it is on this save the date piece. But we just wanted to bring in that little pop, that little something different to show you this is a special event.
And also,
Another
Megan, I would add that this is going out to alumni, and a lot of the mail they get from Yale is asking them for money, asking them for
Mhm.
money, asking them for money. So we also wanted to pull this away from that so that they would see this is something fun for you.
Yeah. And so we also were discussing, so this event every year had a different look. They were trying to figure out, so how do we get people's attention, make this feel a little more elevated? And so the direction that we went with was creating this typographic lockup that we then used almost as like a sort of event logo, event look that we then pulled into everything else. And when we were creating that typographic lockup, one of the other big things that we had to consider was using Yale's traditional font. So they actually have a font that they use as their body copy on everything. And so we felt like if it was a Yale piece, it needed to still pull in that color. But we decided for the typographic lockup and for the headlines and subheads, we were going to pull it away from that and find some fonts that worked well with the Yale traditional serif font that they use for all of their body copy and pull in some fun and just different fonts to give it just to make it feel like it's a special event. It's a little something different. And so this, while it still feels very Yale and very branded to them, it has a different look. It has a different feel. We pulled that typographic lockup and made it into a texture that we put on everything, which is very different from anything else that they get from Yale. And so that's another thing to really consider when you're designing pieces for an event is, do we often only ask them for money when they're getting things in the mail? If so, for this special event, should we be thinking about how we can, I don't know, like make it feel special, make it feel more fun, make it feel different so that they are stopping before they throw it into their trash can? Because as Beth always says, people open their mail over their trash can. And so, yeah.
Rita's asking you to define, can you explain what the graphic lockup means? Like, what does that term
Yes.
mean and show, and where is it? How are we using it here?
Yes. So the graphic lockup is the connect, belong, renew type of typography that's on the save the date. It's on everything, but it's kind of more used as a texture on everything else. But that's that big white type that is on the front of the save the date, which is on the left. And that a typographic lockup is it's almost like creating a graphic out of words,
Right.
I think would be the best way to describe
Yeah.
that. And
Sometimes
so,
we use it to mean like, see how there's the Yale logo shield and then the type that goes with it. So sometimes it's an image and type put together, like locked up, how you're going to show them together. And sometimes it's a typographic grouping that's kind of connected together to turn it into a piece of art.
yeah.
Does that make sense, Rita? And anybody else? Did we explain that well?
And that was a choice that we made for them because we already had to put the Yale Law School logo on everything. And so we were trying to decide, do we do a logo for the event as well? Do they want a logo that says Yale reunion? Or and we decided against that. It was a conversation that we had, and we decided to just create something big and visual and graphic that we could then pull into everything. And it didn't need to say really large Yale alumni. It's actually, they call it Alumni Weekend is the brand of the event. And so Beth, is there anything else that you think we should touch on about this?
No, I mean, basically, I would say what this one is an example of is kind of like a 50-50 decision. So we showed you like a, 10-90, 20-80. And so this is kind of like half and half. We used half their colors and half their fonts and half new color, new font to kind of put that into. So you don't always have to do something extreme. And as you can see, there's not a lot of like the photos are based, like the photos from a reunion weekend kind of all look the same. It's a bunch of people standing around with drinks. And so it doesn't look super exciting. And so, and it's Yale Law School. Like, they don't necessarily want it to look like a jazzy, crazy party. So it's very simple and very straightforward, but in this case, we used type to create this sort of feel and texture that, I don't know if you can see, but there's like sort of weird light and dark look on the background of the postcard. That's basically trying to mimic the physical postcard that we printed, because they're Yale and they could do this. We had a very shiny texture put onto the typography, and then a dull texture put onto the background, so that when you held it, it kind of had this really glowy, bright, shiny, light and dark feel to it, which just made it look very cool without actually adding color or typography. So, if you're still printing things, and I encourage you to do that when you can, sometimes texture is another factor you can bring in to the brand.
Absolutely.
So then we're going to show you one more. Oh, there's one more sitting there in the corner that I didn't see. You can kind of see it there on that one, because that's an actual photograph, how the type is shiny and the background is kind of dull. So just another trajectory, another element that you can consider when you are using things in the physical world. So I would say the last big question that we're going to cover today is, what if you don't have any of that stuff at your disposal? What if you're working in a really tight brand situation? So complete opposite extreme. You're not allowed to add new typography. You're not allowed to add new colors. You're not allowed to like create a new cool graphic. You have to work, or you either have to or you want to work within a tight system. And so sometimes your situation may be that you're working for a brand, a really tight brand, and you're like, here's our brand book. This is what you have to work with. Some organizations' brands are very tight and you get very little flexibility. Cattle shoots are like this wide. And in other cases, you might have more room, like you might be able to do it, but there might be a reason why you don't want to. In this case, there's kind of two reasons why we wanted to stay very, very tight to the brand. It's a college and they have a pretty tight brand, but not that tight. We could have done more if we wanted to, but here's what the situation was that was happening. As you can see over here on the right, they have their main logo, and you can see it's red, only one color, it's just the red. So red, but technically that might mean red and white. And they have that griffin, the little griffin character in their main logo. But the year that we were doing this happened to be their 95th anniversary. So they were already in that year using a variation of their primary logo. And on top of that, this was a brand new event. So this was an online giving day event that was it was physical on site, and it was also happening online. So we had to tie online and on-site activities together, and we had to introduce a brand new event in a year where they were already not using their primary logo. So what we did in this case was we purposely stayed very tight and very narrow in their brand so that we could introduce something in a year where things were already a little different, because we had to indoctrinate their community into this new event. So you might be in a rules-based situation, or you might be in a different situation. There are some times that doing something fun and cool and different just because you can isn't always the right decision. And we wanted people to like catch this fast. This was a 1-day giving day that was done. And so Megan, why don't you talk about the elements that we had available and that we chose to use?
So we had very few elements available to us, one of which being their griffin, which is part of their logo. It's their mascot. It's their icon for the school. And their very simple sans serif type that they use is basically what we had to work with, and imagery of the school. And so we did our best, and we used their red, but they also in their sub palette have this darker, more burgundy color. And so we were able to pull that in. But that was about, and actually I think it's part of their primary palette, because that was what we had to work with. And so we were trying to figure out how we could use that griffin in every way possible. So we have it zoomed in really big over top of imagery. We have it very graphic. I mean, the one nice thing about their color palette is that the bright red on top of the burgundy color, it's very graphic, it's eye-catching, it's interesting looking, and it's very different. And so that was something we really played up and worked with. And we even took the griffin head, which I don't have an image of it, and they turned it into a big mural that they put on the wall that people then put why they were grateful. They added like Post-its to it that said why they were grateful. And so that was pretty much what we had to work with. And so that's why everything is so tightly branded and tightly following the same color palette, this very simple typographic solution. Yeah.
Right, and by using a piece of the logo. Now, first of all, that's not always acceptable in every brand. There are some
Mhm.
brands and brand guidelines that say, don't taunt the logo. You know, you can't pull it apart. You're not allowed to use that little piece. So that's the sort of first thing that we sort of had to check is if we pulled this griffin out and used it as a graphic, is that acceptable in the brand? And it was. And so we were like, well, that's all we got. So we used it both as a graphic, but as you can see in the posters, we basically kind of turned it into an area, like that gave us this red
Mhm.
shape. But by going Griffin, 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 this community really saw it as something that was theirs. And this Giving Day did fantastic and exceeded their goals significantly, which was really cool. So Joseph has a question here. So we're just about here at the end. So I'm going to get to your question in 2 minutes, Joseph. If anybody else has questions, like this is a good time to start putting them in, seeing if you have any questions. But as we wrap up here and get kind of close to the end, I'm gonna put up another poll because we came up with this idea to do this talk today based on what you guys said that you were interested in. So for those of you that maybe were on that logos class and said, please do this, like, how do we do? Hopefully this was helpful. We always like to know, like, did we cover things that you're going to find useful in helping you make your decisions about what you want to do with your events? And also we want to know, like, what should we talk about next? Like if coming to these programs with us, we call them community webinars because we're trying to talk about concepts and things that you may be struggling with or trying to navigate in your office. But I mean, the
Yes,
vast
this is the wrong
majority
poll.
of clients that we have, like a lot of you, as you know, you might know that we lovingly call you all slash marketers because a lot of you are the only people at your organization that does what you do, or you have a really small team. So you don't always have other people that you can bounce these ideas off of. So we're trying to, bring our community together, talk about these things so that you have, some peer support a little bit.
Yes, this is the wrong poll.
Uh, isn't it? Well, there we go.
This is an email poll.
Well, thanks very much. This is also interesting. So that's interesting that I ran the wrong poll. So let's see if I can even figure out what the right poll is. Let's see. Oh, there it is. I got the right one. It's sitting here at the top. Well, we're going to try that again. Clearly, we're doing great. So now, thank you guys so much for answering that one. We will keep your thoughts in mind. Please answer this one. Okay, so I'm going to jump back over here to Joseph's question next. And then also, as I get into questions, like you might have specific questions that are like really, really specific to you that we don't always have time to answer in this. And if like getting help or if there's any ways that we can answer you about like what you could potentially do, I'm always happy to have a 15-minute call for you. So Megan's going to pop into the chat a way for you to schedule a 15-minute discovery call with me if there's anything that we can help you with, or there's anything you're just sort of stuck on and you just kind of want to explore for a few minutes, or if you have like okay, this is too specific to me to put out there in the group, or you don't really want to discuss it publicly, that's fine. Set up a call with me. We'll talk about it. So Megan, yeah, there you go. So you can pop that in. So Joseph wants to know, this is a good question for you, Megan. How would you navigate the demands around co-branding an event that's organized in partnership with other organizations? You're right, Joseph. I agree with you. That's tough. We've had to do that, definitely. I have some ideas, Megan. What do you have?
I'm gonna let you start.
Okay, I was gonna say, I don't want to dump it to you. So, the first two, like, sort of things that come to mind is one thing that you can do is use both of your logos in white. So, or in black, like all in black or all in white. So like knocking out your logo into like a colored area, it takes the sort of two completely different color palettes that you might have as another organization out of the equation and lets you kind of put them next to each other. Like, you can put them next to each other without them looking totally crazy. So that's one thing that you can do. Another thing that you can do is like the complete opposite, is put like a lot of space between those logos. So sometimes we'll put like one logo at the top right, I don't know which way you're looking at me, top right, and the other one at the bottom left. So really putting distance between them. That often can work better if you're sort of like, if one organization has priority over the other, but that doesn't always fly. If you're truly like peers in it, that can sometimes be a problem. Another thing that you can do in your designs is you can kind of section off an area for logos. You know, you can kind of maybe put like, make the whole top half of a design color, like really colorful, and make the bottom half just like a little white bar along the bottom. Or always, like if you're going to do that knockout, but knockout means reversing something to white. If you're going to always have both your logos in white, and maybe you have like a blue or whatever your color is for the event, have a colored bar along the bottom of all of your graphics entirely, and have your logos kind of always in that place together in that bottom thing. And then the last thing that I would say is space. Space is the most underrated design tool that people always forget about, in that, oh, there's room to add a few more bullets here. Or, you know, which probably isn't you guys saying that, it's probably your bosses saying, like, what are you going to do to fill this space over here? You don't have to fill all the space. And if you can maintain white space in your designs, having two logos that maybe weren't ever intended to go together can work much better, because you can say things like presented by, and then put the two logos with lots of white space around them together down there. Oh, and then one more idea. This is I talk and I think at the same time. So many of you might have logos that are in different orientations. You might have a vertical version, like a stacked centered version of your logo. You might have a horizontal version. My other recommendation to be is, if at all possible, try and pair up the two most shape consistent versions of your logos as possible. So you want to maybe ask your partner organization, like, what are your shapes? What do you have to work with here? And what are we allowed to do with yours? So that's another thing. And then one more idea. As you're designing your design, if the event doesn't have a particular color palette, you could potentially see where your color palettes could connect and over. That's
exactly what I was going to suggest, is seeing how your color palettes could either work together, or if there is no way that your color palettes could ever work together, just being very aware that you are being thoughtful about the color choices you're making, and not having the color choices lean toward one brand versus the other, if you want it to feel like a separate event that does not feel extremely branded toward one organization versus the other. It just depends on the event and how you're trying to approach it, and how you're trying to approach it as co-organizations.
And then a follow-up question to that, and Joseph, you have to let me know, was that hopefully Joseph and maybe any other of you got some good useful stuff out of that. So another question, I love this question. This could probably be really helpful for everyone, is how would you measure the event branding success? So I would say, number one, you probably went into having your event with some goals. Maybe your goals were raising a certain amount of money. Maybe it was getting a certain amount of people to show up at the event. Maybe it was getting new people to come to the event. So I would say, like, you have to go all the way back to there. You've got to look at what your goals were for the event, and then look at how well the event did against those goals. So that's sort of like baseline. And so, was your goal to get repeat people coming? You know, so then look at, here's what we did. So we totally changed everything, and yet people still came. To me, that would then be an indicator that we can change it this much and our regular supporters still come. If your goal is to say, get new people to come, you know, this is the look and feel that we have, you know, how well did that do? How did what we did do to attract new people? And I guess it also depends on that. So you attracted new people, maybe if it's a fundraising event as well, were you able to attract those new people in? And maybe how I would maybe put in a metric that says, okay, if our goal is eventually to make those new people supporters, did they give a gift that day? Did they give a gift that week? Or did they give a gift, I don't know, in the first, maybe track to see if they give a gift in by the next time that you send them things. So sometimes, you know, the event isn't always like the end of that cycle. So maybe put some metrics in to say, like, what are the things at your organization that are meaningful? We call them desirable actions. What are the things that if you could 5x, 10x, 100x it, you'd be golden? Like, always thinking about, why are we doing this event in the first place? What are your goals out of it? And then come up with some metrics of your own that will indicate the brand's influence on whether those things are happening. And that's how I would start to look at it. And then and conversely, oh, we completely changed the look and feel of our event, and like our regular supporters didn't show up. That might be an indicator that you've gone too far. So that's where I would start. But if anybody else has any ideas or thoughts, throw them into the chat. Okay. Anybody else? Any questions? We're right here at the top.
Alexandra has a question here that says, as a nonprofit that has finally solidified its brand, we have a yearly gala that has the same logo, but super varying colors and designs. Wondering if now that we've established our brand, do we pivot and try to stick to it? Our audience tends to be board members and their connections.
Oh, that's a good question. So I'm gonna say, I gotta make sure I'm looking in here. Yeah, I got it right in here. So I would say, going back to what Joseph said, do you have, like, how are your metrics? Do you have things that you're measuring? So you've solidified your brand, you have your really yearly gala that has the same logo, but super varying colors and designs. Do we pivot and try and stick to
So
it?
my question for you, Alexandra, is do the colors vary each year, or the colors are very different from the organizational colors? Because if the colors vary each year, my answer would be different than if the colors are different from your organization. If the colors vary each year, they vary each year and are different from the brand. So maybe because this is a big year that you have really solidified the brand of the organization, maybe this year you lean a little bit more into the brand colors. And from there you can decide, well, did that make people happy? Did that seem to work really well? And in that case, maybe then work really tightly with your brand colors and try and stick to them, maybe pulling in those secondary colors a little bit more. I love to use secondary colors for events because it keeps things very close to your brand while still giving it a different, exciting, interesting feel. But that's kind of that would be my primary recommendation. If they were the same each year but were very different from your brand colors, then I might suggest considering pulling in those brand colors in some way to kind of bridge that gap a little bit so that it's not feeling so separate. So Beth, what do you have any other thoughts?
I very much agree with you. And the thing I always like to tell people is remember that rebranding is a process, not a project. It's going to happen over time. And if you're in the first year of indoctrinating people into your new brand, the more you can pull your big rocks, your big things into your brand, the more it's going to do to help with your transition. It's going to help people get pulled in. And you can go, you don't necessarily have to go super tight, but I would maybe, when we talked about the anchors, your name, your fonts, your colors, all those different things that could potentially be an anchor that you don't change. I would probably do a lot more of them this year. And then depending on how it goes over time, you can probably drop some of them. Maybe, once you get this new brand established, you can maybe start bringing in some new colors, maybe playing around with more fonts and move back away from those things. And we've seen that with a lot of organizations that will create an event the first year and it's super tight, but you want to move away. But I would just say if I can leave you all with one thing, move away or make choices strategically, not because like the designer you're working with this year is bored. Like Megan and I are both designers by training. Megan still works as a designer. And like, we're designers. I can tell you, we always want things to be different, but there's the graphical side, and then we always have to remember the marketing side. And Megan and I firmly believe that design needs to be in service to solving an organizational problem. It's not there to decorate. Granted, capturing attention and being noticeable and being great is part of it, but to what end? In service to meeting your like Jordan was asking, like Joseph was asking, actually, the meeting your brand goals. So that's what I would think. So is that helpful?
And I would also say, because your primary audience is board members, they were involved in probably the decision to create a brand look and go toward like kind of bringing things in. And so I'm thinking they would be very happy to see that the brand colors, the brand look is kind of being carried into the event as well.
Exactly.
Yes, I could be wrong, but
be wrong. And if you're not, Alexandra, what I'm hoping is gives you and maybe anybody else here that's in these conversations with there's always going to be somebody that goes, why can't we just do this? Right. And so to be able, like, a lot of what we want to do is we want to be able to give you answers to that so that you can go in and look like an expert and look like, look, I've got this and there's a strategic reason why we're doing this. And to be able to say, we've invested in this brand. It takes time to make the transition. For this year, we're making this decision to be tight. In the future, we can make different decisions. And hopefully having that language, it will make, like, there'll be like a reason why they're doing it other than you just walking in and saying no, because nobody enjoys us being we all want to be the brand police, but nobody likes that about us, right? But we know, like you guys know too, that this is like, you wouldn't invest in rebranding if there wasn't a reason for it. And we believe that there's a great reason to build that adoption. You don't have adoption yet. So while you're building it, closer and loosen up when everybody's cool. So hopefully was this helpful. Thank you all for joining us today. We took notes on what you're looking for, and the things that we suggested to you today were all kind of in this branding, logo design kind of chain. But we talk about lots of other things too. If there's anything else that you're getting stuck on or would like to have a conversation about with your peers and with other people that can weigh in and with us, send us a note. We're always happy to hear your ideas because we love doing these sessions. They're fun and we love to hear what you guys have to say. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We will be back probably in 2 months with the next thing on our list. So can't wait to share it with you. Have a wonderful afternoon and enjoy the next month of your summer. Take care, everybody. And please sign up, call me.